to change and see long-lasting results, get in contact with Bradley Schneller at Bradley@Roux.Fitness. That's ROUX Fitness, or call 504-258-8452. And as always, check out our guys, Veterans Boulevard location of Firehouse Subs. Some of the best people around, do a lot for everybody. So check them out, help our people out, get in shape, do whatever you got to do. Take care of the people that take care of us if you're looking for any of those services. All right. So where you want to start? Big show, Tyrann Mathieu, the trade, depth signings on defense. Where are we going with it?
Man, you just threw a lot at me. I feel a little overwhelmed, Not quite in Saints land. Sometimes as a podcaster, sometimes you just don't even have to think about the topics. They write themselves. This one of them weeks. Let's start with the Honey Badger. Let's just start with the Honey Badger. He's in New Orleans and he's from here, so I don't think that's a big deal. But he came to the facility and visited with the Saints front office and some of the coaches. So how did that come about? What's going into that visit, and what can we expect anything to happen on that front?
Yeah, nothing imminent. I don't think it's. I don't even think the visit today was with the intent of striking a deal. The team wasn't ready to strike a deal. He wasn't ready to strike a deal.
Okay, both
I think
sides.
it was just kind of, he's here. We need a safety. You want to come by? Okay, cool. We'll set that up. Kind of like one of those deals. So he came by, got to know everybody, got to tour the facility, met DA, met Mickey Loomis, the co-DCs, talked to them, saw what they got going on over there. They hit him off with some gear for his kids when he was leaving. Like it was just kind of like a, just a, a come through.
Filling it out.
How you doing? All that stuff.
You're in the city, so just
right. But look, I mean, the thing with him is, I think that he's willing to wait as long as he needs to wait to get paid what he thinks he's worth. If that takes a training camp injury, and for someone to feel some desperation, really at that point, to, oh God, we have to replace our guy. How are we going to do it? This could ruin our season. Oh, Honey Badger's there. Oh, okay. What's he going to cost? Like, he's willing to wait for that situation. I think he's a smart guy. I think he's not at all in a hurry to do anything, and he understands, what it takes to get what you want. And I think he's willing to do that. And that's just kind of where it's at right now. He'll probably visit some other teams. I know the door's open on both sides. Both sides like each other. They see the value, but I just think right now the Saints number, Tyrann's number are two different things. And I think Tyrann's number and everybody's number.
Everybody's numbers, yeah. If somebody offered him the contract he wanted, he'd be signed by now, right?
Right. So yeah, it might just take some time, but I think he's going to play the game how he's got to play it, and that's how it would work out. Look, I would like the signing for the Saints. I think he fits a role. I think he fits a hole. I think him and Marcus May would be really interesting playing with one another. Similar players in some ways, really, with just the versatility and the multitude of things that they can do. You texted me earlier just about just the interchangeability of the two players, and that's a good observation. So I think it would make sense. It would plug a hole. They could go in the draft with that filled. It's wide open. Do whatever you got to do, but I think it's just, if that is the path, it's going to take some time for it to materialize.
Yeah. Last year, with the Saints, and you obviously would know more than me, but you kind of knew Marcus. I mean, they did some stuff with their safeties, but you kind of knew Marcus was kind of the free safety if that was the case. With this, with this setup, theoretically, like I said, you don't know. We were texting earlier, and you don't know who's going to be the free, the strong, who's coming down. You could play, your coverages are a lot more disguised, right? And so, do you think, like, how do you think? You think it would improve? Like, how do you think it would improve the defense? Like, do you think they're going to be able to get more out of their safeties in this setup, or like just the talent loss of Marcus and the leadership maybe of Malcolm, and maybe just some things to kind of keep it from coming together? So, like, do you think it could improve the defense in any way, or are you just kind of like maybe trying to stand still, or it's a slight drop off?
It's tough to say it would improve, just because I think Marcus Williams did what he really did really well. So
yeah,
I would need evidence of said improvement, but I think it could be maybe more like, we've used this word before, but just kind of that position is potentially more dynamic. And yeah, with those two guys, it's who's doing what, who's dropping, who's going. I mean, there's just a lot of stuff you could do that I think would would allow creativity and to create
Yeah.
confusion with both of them because, like you said, they're very that they can blitz, they can cover, they got enough range. They don't have Marcus Williams range, but they got enough range.
Enough. And both can play the slot, by the way, which
Yeah,
is
and then, like, even there's CD even could factor in
exactly.
some of the stuff every now and then. It's just
Yep.
you'd have a lot of guys that can do a lot of different things, and it would make a interesting defense. But like you said, sometimes Marcus came down, and I thought Marcus was getting better at playing in the box,
He
actually.
was. He was.
And when he was coming down, like sometimes he made some big plays, and he
Yep.
was tackling better and playing the run better, all that stuff. I think he was getting better at it, but I think both these guys are a little bit more fully formed in that aspect of their game.
Mhm.
Whereas neither one of them nearly has the deep ability of Marcus Williams, but, I think if they were together, yeah, I mean, I think you have a good tandem. If you have to move on from a really good player in a savvy vet to Marcus May and Tyrann Mathieu, you potentially could have a really, really good duo back there, but
Yeah, you could do a lot worse.
yeah, but we'll
Yeah.
see. I mean, maybe they go through the draft, they don't find the safety, he's still available, and that's the time. Like, you just like circumstances might have to just create a little bit of leverage for him so that he can get what he wants.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I mean, and just to take it a step further, you could theoretically say the same thing about PJ. PJ's more of a deep safety, I think, more so than a box safety,
Mhm.
but he played in the slot. And to play in the slot, you got to be physical, right? I mean, that's one of the things about the slot. You know, you're usually closer to the ball carrier, and so, and I guess Justin Evans in a similar vein, right? He's someone that can maybe play. I remember a little bit about him, so I need to go and look more on that signing. But I did go back and look at some of his pre-draft stuff, and he was an athletic guy, right? And he was definitely someone like not at the way below this player's level, but just how Bob Sanders played, where he was like this smaller guy who he hit really hard, right? He hit really hard. And so it kind of led to some injuries. But it just seems like with all the safeties they have in the room, neither guy is just like a pure strong or free. It's just some versatility there. And if they sign Honey Badger, all three would have played in the slot. So but yeah, anyway, let's get to the real. Saints make just a monster trade with Philadelphia Eagles to acquire, additional first rounder. The Saints gave up a third, a first from next year, and a second round from the subsequent year, 2024. And there's some exchange of late round picks, and we'll get into that. We can get into that later, the details, and you guys have probably already seen it. But man, what are your thoughts on this trade? Like,
Well, let's start off with the 10-second take each. I like the deal. I think it's smart.
I'm,
I
you know
I
what?
I
I
think the
like it
value's
too.
fine. I think the value's fine if they're a good team and that pick's near the bottom. It kinda works out on the trade charts.
Let me ask you this about the value. And just tell me, just honest answer. You remember what the Chiefs gave up for Mahomes?
No, I don't, but and I know where you're going with that. Like, that's always the case. If the picks work out,
If
who
it's a good
cares?
pick,
Yeah,
it doesn't matter. Yeah, it's all
right,
about the picks, the guys that they pick instead of the value, right?
right.
Like if the
I mean,
Chiefs would have,
the value matters to some extent, but, like, the trade charts kinda put it close. I
yeah,
was a little bit surprised that, like, people like Joe Banner were like, "This is the
I
most
saw that.
lopsided trade
I saw that.
in NFL history." I'm just like, "Whoa." Like, it didn't even strike me like
The
that at
GM,
first. Like,
yeah,
look, again, if they're a bad team and they're picking in the top 10 and they gave up a top 10 pick, it's a horrible
it's
trade.
a horrible
Absolutely, and
trade.
that probably means your picks didn't work out very well.
Exactly.
So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that went wrong, and there's a lot of factors that lead to it being a bad trade. But if it's in the bottom, I don't know, like Rich Hill, the guy in New England,
Yeah,
he has his trade chart. He's studied like every trade over the last I don't know how many years, 15,
yeah.
20 years, and it's kind of modernized and it's reevaluating what teams actually value these picks at as opposed to the Jimmy
Oh,
Johnson chart.
okay,
So
okay, okay,
the Jimmy
okay,
Johnson chart is kind of the one that we all kind of default to, but like Rich
hmm
noticed that like a lot of the trades weren't fitting this chart, so he
okay,
studied them, assigned new values and everything. And on that chart, if the Saints are picking bottom, I don't know what he had, like bottom 12 or whatever, like it's basically an even trade. Like
see,
so if they draft and they make the playoffs, come close to making the playoffs, like I think the trade's going to be
yeah,
kind of fitting to what the value of picks actually are in the NFL right now.
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
like you
I
said,
mean,
none of that matter. Like,
the team that just won the Super Bowl don't they have
right,
no picks. I
right,
mean, they spent the second and a third on Von Miller at the end of the season, and he left in free agency. You think they regret that?
right.
Yeah,
The
so,
the one
like
thing I'm, like, the least interested in are, like, my own thoughts on what's right or wrong or before something it's just like,
mhm,
oh, if you do this and it works, okay, that's a way of building a team and it worked. And if you
yeah,
do this and it doesn't work, it was a way of trying to build a team and it didn't work.
and it
And
didn't work, yeah.
yeah,
Mm, that's
that's
real.
yeah, that's it.
That's
Like,
real,
I'm not
that's real,
yeah.
that's
Yeah.
real, that's real. Because at the end of the day, there's it's worked in the past and it's failed in the past. So does that make it right or wrong? It like, it doesn't matter. It's way more interesting to get to the bottom of, like, what the team is thinking. Like, that's the way more thing. Is like and just to, segue into that, like, if you're the Saints and you make this trade, forget about the value, forget about if you like the trade, forget about if you like a bunch of draft picks, few draft picks, don't like trading into the future. Like, what is their state of mind when they made this trade? Like, what were they thinking? That is, like, the way more interesting thing, and that's what's your
My
take on
first
that?
thought my first thought on it is, like, you got guys like Cam, Demario
Mhm.
Davis, core players that are a little bit older.
Yeah,
Your 2017 class is now everybody's into their
their
next
primes.
deal. The guys that are still here. So
Yeah,
3 years down the road when you're making the second round pick, where are their contracts at? What are they doing? Are they still on the team? So is Demario still on the team? Is he still effective? Is Cam still on the team? Is he still effective?
yeah,
Is
yeah,
Marcus
yeah,
Davenport still on the team? All these things. I'm looking at it and I'm like, okay, so they kind of feel like their core is getting older. Your core players from that 2017 class, as you said, are in their prime right now. What do you do to help them? Well, this team right now, they're look, they're showing through their actions right now that they are not all in the sense of taking every available dollar, maximizing it, signing players,
yeah,
doing what they have to do at the expense of everything to be a Super Bowl contender right now. They aren't acting as if they're a team that's like this team is this player Honey Badger away from winning the Super Bowl,
yeah,
give him
yeah.
whatever he wants.
One more guy,
Yeah,
Marcus Davenport, 2 first rounders to get the pass rush up because we ready to compete now
right.
trade. I mean,
Out of
it's
their
like
own mouths, they have said prioritizing the cap, getting it a little bit in order is something they want to do. And
mhm,
they don't really out of their own mouths, they don't see an all-in type of situation. They're still competing to win. They wanna be a 10,
right.
11 win team, whatever, make the playoffs, see what happens. That's just kinda where they're at. That's where they exist right now.
Yep,
So, how do you maximize the core of this team without sacrificing it, plus rebuild while being financially responsible? To me, my first thought is they were trying to walk the line between those 2 things,
yep,
move the picks up, get more starters, don't
mm,
pay them max dollars, start over with by putting your next wave of young core around the
yeah,
2017 core, which is around the older core, the Demario Davis type players,
yeah,
Malcolm Jenkins who walked out, Cam Jordan, those guys. So to me, it's kind of just like building the Russian doll of sorts, like kind of getting your tiered approach, move
yeah,
those assets up and see where you're at. Now that was my first thought was that 3 picks in the top 53 holes, draft for all of them, OT, wide receiver, safety. That's the team. And that was kind of my initial impression of it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I think that's a good way to look at it. My first take was like, "Oh, expletive." It's like it's never a dull moment, right? With this team, it's just like a really,
Well, there
we got
was several weeks of dull moments before this,
bro.
well, actually, I mean, things were happening, but nothing was happening, but there was, like,
Yeah,
a good 10-day period there where it was like, "Please do something."
please something happened. Yeah, and they were like, just wait,
Yeah.
just just give us a chance. I promise you. And like, I've been on the timeline a little bit more lately, and like and listen, man, I listen. Fan stands for fanatic, right? Fan stands for fanatic. So it's all good. It's all good and fun. But man, some people who were like in breakdown panic mode, they like they right back in the train. They buying jerseys. It's just like the 180 is hilarious, and it's dope. I'm not making fun of it, right? It's dope, but it's just like it's crazy how you can just go from one extreme to the next with a move like this, and I just think it says like man, they still think that they have a good team,
Yeah.
right? I was kind of wondering like, rebuild, like you can't rebuild with this much talent, but it's like it feels like it because they're not doing much. But then it's like, no, okay, they're definitely not rebuilding. You don't make this type of move and rebuild, right? So
Yeah, I call it a competitive reload, really, is kinda
yeah,
like
there
how
you go.
yeah.
Yeah, there you go. It's like when you if you're in a fight, you lose, and you just swing while you're stepping back a little bit to gather yourself up a little bit to
Mhm.
go back in there. Um, I don't know why I brought that up, but you guys get the you guys get what I'm saying. But yeah, it was definitely I love it though. I love it. I like the aggressiveness because I think that is kind of that's what wins in the NFL right now. And it sounds a little cliche, but look at, like I said, I mean, look at the Rams. I mean, they're an aggressive team, and they won a Super Bowl, man. And they won a Super Bowl. They got shirts saying "F them picks," and you know what I mean. It's just that I think that's part of part of what gets teams winning now. Like just that conservative stay and draft where you draft and don't act in free agency. I just think that model is not really what's happening right now. So I'm just glad to see them being aggressive, and it seems like they do have something in mind. And I think it's just we get to wait and see what it is. And this definitely, I mean, if you weren't paying attention, like you definitely are now. This is like an air horn at 2 a.m.
Yeah,
So
it's fascinating to me that they made the trade now though, because these are usually the type of trades you
mm,
see
mhm.
later on in
Yeah.
going into the draft, and making it now. It's it's definitely interesting.
It
Sometimes
says a
things just
lot about what they think.
it does, but I mean it doesn't at the same time because you could just make all the picks. You could package those picks, move up,
Yeah.
make a trade for the future by getting Malik Willis, Kenny Pickett, whoever, wherever you got to do to move up. Any
Yeah.
trade chart you look at, the two picks they got, you package them together, it's enough to get up to three. So
Yeah.
getting up to three gets you one of the two quarterbacks, maybe both are still available. You can't, I don't even want to say this. It gets you up for an offensive tackle if you want Evan
You
Neal,
about to drive people
Charles Charles Cross, which look wouldn't be a horrible pick. You'd have to go get a wide receiver somewhere else, but I mean that
yeah.
wouldn't be a horrible pick for a
Or
team that just
O'Neal.
lost.
I mean, that kid from Alabama, if
Yeah,
he's at
he,
3, if you go into 3, you're getting the kid from Alabama. Right, you're gonna get the best tackle in the draft if you're going up to 3. Like, you
right,
can't get the second best. Yeah.
right. So I mean, if that's it, look, it's not it's I would much prefer like other
Nah,
a
bro.
non-offensive line or I don't wanna like have to cover a defensive end from a small school just because I'm just tired of like having to, everybody and it seems like the narrative never changes in the draft. I would much rather see like a wide receiver and a safety, a wide receiver and a QB, whatever it is in those original spots. But if they go up and get like somebody at one of these positions, it would it would be a defensible and make sense move if you do other things. But
Yeah.
you go up for an OT, that's like a get Jarvis, get OBJ type of situation then. And
Man, that's a
we'd see how they would handle
fan
it.
base going, "Listen, avoid the timeline at all costs if they
Would
go
people
to
be
play
mad if
like."
they got a OT and they got Jarvis and OBJ? Would
Yeah,
people
that's what
still
I'm
be mad about
saying.
that?
If they draft, oh yeah, bro. Well, you gotta realize if they go and get Jarvis after, they gonna have to do that after draft, right? With Jarvis. I'm saying if like after draft night, if they take those two first and go get an offensive tackle, and Jarvis, that would have to happen a week later or whatever after draft. Oh man.
Yeah, for that
Oh
week it
man.
would be
Oh
extremely
man.
uncomfortable. Yeah,
Oh man. Come
yeah.
on. No, no, it's gonna be
And
crazy.
they do need young wide receivers in the pipeline. Like, they do need young wide receivers in the
Yeah,
pipeline
man. Hey,
100%. Yeah.
big time.
Yeah.
I'm just saying
Yeah.
it'd be funny. Like it'd
Yeah.
be it'd be crazy, man.
Look, here's the other thing with the pick value too is you see
Yeah.
what wide receivers are getting traded for now?
Mm-mm.
Like,
Man, and those contracts. Mike is cheap.
the contract and the pick compensation, like, that's a high value position now. So, like, if you're trading to get a young guy on a controlled deal, like, I
Makes
don't know, man.
sense.
It feels like that market's resetting, and
Makes sense. Makes sense.
maybe you're, if they stay there and they draft one and they're getting the other pick to draft another position and they stay in those spots,
Yeah.
it might be at the front of a curve, kind of almost like I don't
Yeah,
know, but the
man.
draft's so deep at that position, but still, like they need multiple players
But you see, it
going up
doesn't
for a
even.
QB.
Oh,
Like,
okay.
I know your preference is going up for QB. I can't argue with that. Like, I can't really
Actually,
argue with.
let me come back around to that. Finish your point, then we're gonna come back. Then we'll come back around to that.
All right, well, that was kind of the discussion we were having yesterday. Your preference was for that. Like, I wouldn't argue with, like, you go up and get a QB. That's always, if it's the right QB.
The right QB is
My
all
take on
good.
this is consistent throughout the history of all times. Like,
Draft
go get your
quarterback.
QB and then you figure everything else later. Yeah, if
Yeah,
that's you see the
yeah,
guy and you have the ammo to do it, do it.
yeah.
But like, you know, I I would like the idea of building. I still think they can be a playoff team, and you build around Jameis. You
They made the playoffs
put the
last
team
year
there.
with.
And
with
if
with with nothing, man. No
right.
quarterback, no wide receivers. I mean, yeah, I mean, you lose Sean, but, like, you gotta think that talent that you bring back with the same system, I mean,
And let's say
it's
there's a scenario where Jameis isn't the QB. Okay, so like you go into the season, there's a step back or something, there's an injury, whatever. For something happens to where he's not your quarterback and you're not commit. You see all the QB movement in the league. You have a good team, you
mhm,
have good players.
yeah.
You're kind of a few pieces away. You're a quarterback short, and being a quarterback short can be the longest distance away. Or if you become one of these teams that's able to go get Matt Ryan, Deshaun Watson, Russell Wilson, whoever,
Yep.
like these guys are moving around a lot now. Like maybe you keep your team strong and you get one in a year, or
You can
Sean
figure it
Payton
out.
comes back
Sean
and coaches
Payton picks
somewhere.
come back and, yeah, and,
Yeah.
yeah.
Now you're moving up in the draft for a QB. I mean, there's a lot of ways to have that work out, and I'm not
Yeah,
at all acting like it's easy to get that quarterback. The Saints have missed multiple times. They missed on Mahomes. They missed on Watson. Who knows what else they were targeting, and it
yep,
didn't work out.
yep.
So it's not like an easy thing. And truthfully, like they've been looking for Drew's successor since they drafted Garrett Grayson, and
Yeah,
the process is
Colorado
still
State.
yeah
Remember the secret visit that Sean took
yeah
to work him out? That was crazy, bro.
yeah.
A secret visit to go work out Garrett Grayson. It
They
was
thought
like,
they had the one, man. They thought
yeah,
they
it
had
was
the one.
wild times, man.
But yeah, man. So I mean, I think keeping the team strong in all aspects, even if you aren't going off for if you're making this trade just to fill out this team, it makes sense to me. Like I think they're that close to being a team that can win a game or two in the playoffs.
Yeah, yeah, I tend to agree. I think that like the like this is so interesting, right? This whole move because like I don't know if it's something that I really can remember seeing a team do, right? Like a team you're in cap trouble and you want to kind of reset your cap and get it back to a logical working state. And so you're not super active in free agency, but you still have to field a competitive team, right? And I can't really think of any scenarios where I can say a team had to do that. And so them dudes, they sat around and said, well, how can we still be competitive, and but still like kind of grow up out of this cap hole that we're in? And they was like, what assets do we have? And you look at the draft and say, okay, like on one side, you could say, well, maybe trade some bets or something, but then you're losing your competitiveness. But in reality, they just said, well, okay, we got assets. It's another way to build a team, right? We could just use the draft. Let's maneuver around a little bit. And so that's our free agency. Now it's a little bit riskier. You don't know how these guys are going to perform.
Right.
There's, they got to work to learn the systems and get good, but it's a different way of thinking. And like I reward that. Like I'm a fan of teams doing stuff different. Like I'm a fan of what the Rams do. Just a team that's just willing to operate a little bit differently. I think it's cool, man. I think it works. Like I said, thinking being innovative in this sport works, and I think it's just they've been innovative with the cap, right? Just in how they've been able to add void years, and now teams used to make fun of the Saints or commentators, and now every team is doing void years. Like I've never seen so many void years in the last couple of years, right? And the Saints was doing this for a while back, so it just kind of seems like they're ahead of the curve. Now, if it works, or if it don't work, we'll figure it out. But at least I think that they're like being innovative. They're thinking outside the box. And, I just got to respect them for, just having the wherewithal to try something different. I just, that off that alone, willing to stand by yourself and try something. I think, I got to give them credit for that at least.
Yeah, I'm with you. And the market was just kind of weird this year too.
Yeah.
And at the position they needed, guys kind of got extremely, extremely overpriced. And
Yeah. And then
that's the function of the Jaguars, man. Like they
oh
messed
man,
up.
that Christian Kirk contract
Yeah,
drove
they
the
messed up
market
the whole entire market. Yeah.
crazy. But
And
maybe, you know what? Maybe that's what he was going to get because we just saw a couple of wide receivers get like 30. So
yeah,
maybe
but
that position was just messed up from the start, and it's just a collection of moves. It's just, that's just where it is now.
yeah,
It
I mean,
seems
but like, if like everybody's on Rockefeller and Hove's making 30, like Freaky Zeke doesn't need to be making 10, right? Like there's still a long way to go to the bottom of the
pretty
Rockefeller
easy.
depth chart. You know what I'm saying? So like I just think that deal was outrageous and like, come
Yeah,
on.
it
Like,
was a
come
little
on.
wild. It was a
Yeah,
wild
yeah.
deal. That was a wild deal, and I mean, I think I understand why they wanted him, but not for that price, man. Like you gotta chill
Right.
out.
Yeah,
You gotta
but they
kinda
have
like
to
the
over
emergent.
they have they that is a team that legitimately does have to overpay players to go there because
Yeah,
people don't
people
wanna
aren't
play there.
gonna.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, that's
they
true.
need
That's
to
true.
build a new culture, new team, all that stuff, and maybe eventually it becomes a destination, but, like, right now, especially coming off of the Urban Meyer stuff and all that, and the
Yeah.
coach they hired is I think he didn't get a fair deal, really, maybe. I think
Mhm.
he's probably a little better than how things ended, but at the
Yeah.
same time, like, I don't know that he's somebody that's, like, inspiring,
Yeah, he's not.
excitement
He
right
wasn't
now.
the guy. We know
Yeah,
that for sure. Yeah, we
yeah,
know that for sure. Yeah, yeah. No, no. You bring up you bring up a real good point. I mean, you're right. Like teams, they sometimes teams have to do more. I mean, you saw, Cleveland had to basically take the whole quarterback contract market. I mean, you had owners commenting publicly about how crazy that contract is.
yeah,
like just openly saying like what the hell are they thinking, right?
right.
And so like that's a losing team into that had got taken out the race. And so to be competitive for what they felt they had to be competitive, they had to just say, all right, man, listen, here go to take it. Here you go. Right. And that's kind of what happened. You know,
Like, you never wanna be a team that's giving out bad deals just to address
yeah,
something, and sometimes, like, if you're in that situation where you feel you're one player away from the Super Bowl, maybe you extend yourself, but
yeah,
that's a very specific circumstance, and if you're
yeah.
that squeezed into getting Christian Kirk, I I just don't know if your plans really
You're picking one, by the way.
like, I don't know if your
You're
plans
not
that
one player
effective.
away. You're
Right,
picking
right,
first.
right,
Yeah,
right.
you are far. Right. I mean, I don't know. Cincinnati picked first, and then 2 years later they went in the Super Bowl. So let me chill. Things happen.
Sometimes, like, if it's a one-year deal, sometimes I think it makes sense for a team to just kinda give, like, a really stupid amount of money because,
A
like, they're on the
vet or
books and
something.
then they're off, and
Yeah,
it
yeah, I
just
feel
kinda
you.
is what it is. Granted, you can roll the money over to next year, but if you keep rolling your money over, all of a sudden, you're Chris Ballard, and you just have a ton of cap space, and you're never doing
You're
anything with
never
it
doing anything with it.
because,
Yeah,
like, you're just so fixated on only making the smartest deals, and, I think that's to the detriment of their team almost.
yeah.
But you don't wanna be the team that's handing out bad deals because bad deals is how you end up in cap trouble, and when you
Right,
have a tight salary cap like the Saints, you can't overpay players. Every dollar has to maximize its
right.
value, and you have to be getting a return on your investment because
Yep.
you don't have the money to overcome mistakes, and, you don't wanna enter into a deal that's very obviously bad from the start, and then
From the rip.
yeah,
Yeah,
right.
from the rip. Yeah, because 'cause you're starting from behind. You're starting from behind. Save 20% off on the NOF subscription. Use the code draft season on any plan at checkout. If you're not part of what we are doing and you're listening to this pod, come on, man. Just come on. So link in the description of the pod. It'll be a link there. But guys, NewOrleans.Football. That's where you can find us. So check it out. Everything that's happened with this trade and anything that you can possibly think about Saints wise, coverage wise, Honey Badger wise, it's on the website. And by the way, if you're not following the Instagram account, NewOrleans.Football Instagram account, go check that out. A lot of new content there. A lot of some nice graphic work I've been appreciating. So got a nice size account there. We're trying to grow it. So you guys go check us out, man. All right, back to this trade. As a little commercial break. Back to a regular scheduled program. What do you think they should do, man? Like just like best case scenario, right? How do you think that if they put you in the GMC and they said, Nick, fix this team, man, right? Like, what moves are you looking to make? Are you aggressive? Are you waiting for a player? Is it quarterback? Are you building around Jameis? Are you going quarterback, something? Like, how are you attacking this draft? And you got, by the way, they kept their second round pick, which I think is, I think
Yep.
that's like a big deal. And then they got another third. How many thirds they have now? I think they're down to two. Um,
1, right?
well, they had two with a comp pick, and then they traded one.
Hold on.
Yeah, I thought they started off with 3,
Yeah, okay, yeah, okay.
and they
Yeah.
traded one for in this past trade, so I think they should have 2 yet. Probably the 2. I don't know if they traded the comp pick. I didn't think
So
you checked.
they got 16, 19, 49, 98, 120, 137, 161, 194, 214.
So how many thirds is that?
16, 19, 98, and then 120 is a comp, right?
I think 120 is the comp. I'm pretty sure
Okay.
120 is
Yeah.
the
All
comp.
right.
I'm pretty sure 120 is the comp. I think I remember seeing that. But I thought they got 2 comps. I know they
No,
got 2.
they got one. They got one. Yeah, because they
Oh.
traded for Roby.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah, okay, that's right,
yeah,
that's right.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
I forgot about that trade. Okay, okay, okay. Right, and so they have, 2 firsts, they have a second and a third, right? So you got, like, I mean, you can get good receivers in the 4th or 5th this year, right? And so, like, what do you think they should do with this draft? Like, starting specifically with the top of the draft.
So I would sign Tyrann, obviously. Like that would be the first thing I do. They got
Okay,
what,
okay.
25 million in cap space.
Oh, they got that much? Ooh,
Yeah, just pay
that's
him, front
winning.
load it, have him
Yeah,
off the books, like
in a
2-year deal,
year,
whatever.
yeah,
Put most of it in the front. Second year is
right.
optional, I guess. Something like that. That's how I would do it.
Could've kept Marcus with that, but anyway, that's a different subject.
I mean, it's a longer commitment, I guess. And
Yeah,
then
sure,
I
sure.
would go into the draft. That way, I don't have a need a fix to a
That's
specific
safety.
spot. Yeah, so I'm taking one of those completely off the board. I'm drafting best available tackle. Hopefully, one falls.
Okay.
So if they don't, you shift
First with
it
the first pick, best available tackle?
depending on how the board falls, but probably
Okay.
so. Best available tackle there.
Okay.
You know, if one of them falls there, if not, you shift gears, and then I'm taking a wide receiver in best available
Mm,
wide receiver. So I want to come out of those first two picks with those two positions. Maybe it's possible, maybe it's not. You're definitely getting a wide receiver. If it's two wide receivers, fine, draft two. Like if that's what you have to
right,
do it.
right,
If the
right.
tackle isn't there, and those are the best players. So if the tackle isn't there, I'm going best wide receiver, and then I'm going BPA at the next pick, whatever position that is. I don't care if it's quarterback, running back,
Mm.
safety, cornerback, linebacker. Like I don't care, just whatever with it.
You gotta get a good player there,
Yeah.
basically. You're saying give me some talent at this position.
And if they like any of the quarterbacks at 49, I would draft a quarterback there.
49.
That's the luxury of addressing safety is that maybe in the second round you can do something.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean,
Maybe you take a tight, you know, maybe it's a tight end, maybe, but if they like a quarterback there, I wouldn't be opposed to that pick. I know like they've spent a lot of time around Sam Howell. Like I don't know how they feel about him, but the level of
okay.
contact, pro day, a private workout after the pro day.
Mm,
Matt Corral visited the facility recently, so like they're doing homework on
on quarterbacks.
quarterbacks. And Corral took they're only allowed 30 guys, and he was one of the 30. You know, sometimes that
Okay.
means something, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes the
Yeah,
guys
yeah.
that come in just have more questions to answer than other guys. So there can be various reasons for that, but like they are around the quarterbacks. They are doing a lot of homework on the quarterbacks, and you know, if you like one of them, take one. It's you know, if not, do something else. But
Yeah.
I feel like if you take safety off the board, like you're just your possibilities at that point. I just feel like all of a sudden you have more flexibility just to do. Oh, because
Mo I got a
you
que
have
but I got
one
a I
real
got a
need and a maybe.
I got a scenario for you. What if they signed a veteran offensive tackle, like, on the market and took that off the must-have? Because I mean, you could make a case that there's a couple of guys. I was looking while you were talking, I was like, "Man, what about to Darrell Williams from Buffalo and Eric Fisher from
I
the"
think they're
he's
cool riding with Hurst, like relative to spending the money on one of those guys.
oh, and so they would rather ride with Hurst, but if they see a long-term solution, then they go
Yeah, I
there.
think if they see
Okay.
a long term solution, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, okay. Yeah, because I would rather them, like, go into like, and this may sound a little crazy, but, like, I would rather them having pay the offensive tackle, and I think all this stuff kind of formulates after the draft, right? But I think OT is a big need for this team, but I think you can be okay. I know it's a big need for this team, obviously. Actually, you don't lose Teron Armstead and not have a big hole. But I think you can run an offense with Hurst because we saw them do it. Now, the longer you're there, the longer you're playing, the more teams expose your weakness, right? So the longer he's available, more games he start, the probably worse he's going to look, because he does have limitations. But I want them to be able to go into this draft and address, just getting explosive offensively, right? I think that would be something. In if one of those picks got to be a wide receiver, and if it's part of it is shorting up protection, I get it, right? But I think you just don't want to be forced into having to take an offensive tackle, just like you may be forced to having to eventually dress safety.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. It's
Yeah,
always better to plug those holes. 100%. Yeah, and
yeah,
it's just as soon as you take some of those things off the board, like it's just like I said, like it just feels like freeing to the point where it's
yeah,
like "Oh, do you like
liberating.
this guy? Do you like this guy? Do you like this guy?"
Right.
Like, yeah, I
Right.
mean, it's the right players there. The only thing I feel like they absolutely must do is wide receiver. Safety, I think, is kind of right there. OT is a spot where I feel like it's survivable. Um,
Okay.
and
One
but we'll
injury,
see.
but
We'll
yeah, I
see.
know,
Yeah,
I
we'll
know.
see.
But
We'll
most
see.
most
Yeah.
positions are like that one injury,
Yeah,
so you
yeah.
can't say that.
But,
Yeah, you can't say
yeah, I think they need I think finding a longer term answer, I don't think Landon Young's there yet. I think they think Ethan
yeah.
Greenidge is probably a little bit closer to
Mm.
being able to play than
Okay.
Landon Young, but maybe Landon Young comes in and has that rapid acceleration going into year 2. Sometimes that happens, but
Yeah.
that's a bet that I don't think you can make right now. I think he's still quite developmental at this point.
Yeah, 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 yeah. No, I get it, I get it. So so you would say you said just basically you wanna ideally, they could work out of the first round with an offensive tackle and a wide receiver, and that would be,
Ideally,
like,
yeah, and
ideally.
sign Matthew, yeah.
Yeah, 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 and so and then, like I said, you still got second round and third round picks to, win. Like I said, that in the second round, at that point, there will be a good wide receiver there, like 100%. What are your thoughts on, if they trade up, like what would that tell you if they made that move? Because they just signed Jameis to, the 2-year deal, 28 million. And, I think it would kind of signal that they were kind of looking past, who they have in the quarterback room. So, like, what would you think that their thought process is if they went with quarterback?
That they like a quarterback that they think can be their starter for the next 10 years, and they didn't sign Jameis to a 10-year deal. They didn't sign him to a 5-year deal. They signed him to
Yeah.
basically a 1-year deal with, you know, s some money next year. Yeah, I mean,
Yep.
so
Yep.
it's not a commitment to where they have told us through their actions, this is who it's gonna be for the next 5 years, so that's just where it's at right now, and that's not an opinion on Jameis, or that's just the reality of his contract
Yep.
until they commit, they're kinda just standing there waiting and, so,
We'll
yeah, I
see
mean, they
what
aren't
happens.
in, and so until they're locked in on him, like, their options are open for anything, and, that's just kinda that's the reality of the situation. So, maybe they go
That's
up, they
where
get
they
a
are.
quarterback, and they like him for 10 years. I mean, I think that'd be fine, like, if you but if that move's gotta be right.
You better hit them hit. I
Yeah.
mean, I think they're at that point now, even before quarterback. Like, they got to get these picks.
Yeah.
Like, these picks gotta, like, Jeff Ireland. Like, this is your moment. Like, if you
2
hit
of the
this,
3 2 of the first 3, those dudes gotta be immediate, like,
they got to
impact
hit.
players, yeah.
Yeah, they got to hit. They got to hit because you do not want that pick next year. Like, that's gonna make the
Mhm.
trade. Like you said earlier, that's gonna make it a bad trade, right?
Yeah.
And that's I think that's the key to it. So I you know I hate to be boring, but I think my preference for these picks it's lame. It's just get good players, right? Because if you get talent, if you acquire talent with these picks, 2017 showed us that in the long term your team will be good, right? Your team will be good, and I think that's just the key to it, right? If you need an offensive tackle and the guy that you convey is not there, then man, you can't pick the tackle, right? If someone drops and you didn't expect them to drop, like say they sign Honey Badger, but the kid from Notre Dame dropped. Like, what do you do? Right? His grade may be higher than anyone else's. So at the end of the day, it's just really like just acquire talent, right? Acquire talent and go from there, right? And so when and I'm with you. If you look at what position ideally they would get, it would just be the two biggest needs, right? And I mean, wide receiver, wide receiver. If you just being like super logical about it, but which would be crazy if they double up on that position in the draft. That would be pretty insane. I wouldn't be mad at
This
it though.
is potentially interesting here, like, I just got, I guess we'll bring a little podcast news here. They had Andrew Booth in for a visit, the Clemson cornerback, first round
Oh,
type of talent, so,
interesting.
that's interesting too, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's interesting. Listen, if he's good and you got a good grade on him and he's there,
Yep,
gotta draft him.
yep.
You gotta draft him, man. You gotta draft him. I mean, I think at the end of the day, that's really, like I said, because if they hit on these picks, then they're extending their window, right? If you feel like you can get some, and I mean, obviously, quarter and preface all of this, like wide receivers got to be addressed, and it's got to be addressed in the draft. I just think that's a known by now. But if they keep adding talent to this team without, and then the cap in a couple of years, the cap is in a much better position. Now you have a talented team with a good cap, and I think that just kind of where I think that's where they're looking to be with this move that they're making. So
back to the Jameis thing. Like one of the things that I have seen is like people saying it wouldn't be like it would be a waste to do quarterback whatever like I get it would be sacrificing this season to some extent, but again, if you aren't committed to somebody, like none of this is short term.
Yeah, man.
None of this is short term. Like it's a long term game, and if that's the quarterback and you're looking at him and that is the guy, it's not about this year. It's not about it's about the bigger picture all the time, and it can't just be so microscopic. Like, yeah, they wouldn't have their wide receivers, they wouldn't have their safety, they wouldn't have their offensive tackle. You're making sacrifices somewhere to do this, so you're leaving some holes open. Maybe you get a wide receiver in the second. It's not as good as being able to have the first round, and obviously you can build a better structure by not packaging those picks and going up.
Absolutely.
But if going up is the best thing for the 2026 season, you go up. Like that's just what you do. Yeah. So if your long term outweighs the short term, like you can't do anything through the vacuum of one season.
One season, because you're not there. They were there at one point, and they did that, and it didn't work out. And they just not that one thing away from. So, like you said, they gotta like especially in the draft, these are big time moves.
Yeah, and this is nothing at all to like. I'm not comparing Jameis Winston to anybody else. I'm not commenting on Jameis Winston's skill level. Nothing at all. Just any
we got to
team.
tread so carefully when we talk about Jameis.
Yeah,
Jameis.
For real though. But like, this is not a Jameis. This is not Jameis. This is not related to Jameis Winston at all. I'm just saying and I'm not saying Marcus Mariota and Jameis Winston are the same players, but I'm just saying like, if the Falcons went all in and were like, we are building our whole structure around this quarterback that's on basically a 1-year deal at the expense of everything else, and this is the thing we're doing, and we believed in this guy so much, we gave him a 1-year deal at below starter money, but we're going all in around him at the expense of the future of this organization. We don't care about these other things. We would sit here and be like, this is the dumbest thing. Like, how can they be so short-sighted? So until they are locked in at quarterback is open. Like, it is an open possibility for the future. Right now, Jameis's job. Jameis can lock it down and be that guy. He can develop into what we've talked about his potential over and over and over and over.
Length about it last couple of pods.
But until that potential manifests into a 5-year deal worth $27, $28, $30 million a year, it's not a commitment. There is nothing committed there.
If you're lucky, right? If you're lucky, you want to be paying them that much. But yeah, you're absolutely right. And I know, like initially after the trade, and I don't think my take has changed. I think it's just like I'm seeing it from different angles. But like initially when the trade came out, I was like, man, like you didn't give Jameis starter money. And that's not my opinion, by the way. I haven't said how I feel about, but $28 million a year is low end starter money at this point in the NFL, right? And he got 28 for 2 years.
Right.
Now, it's more to me. So I can't say too much, but you know what I mean? Like, and so my thought was like, well, you tried to get another quarterback this season. You've been very adamant about you got to get the answer for the quarterback. Early this offseason, like that's what they said, yo, we can't do nothing until we figure out the quarterback. That's priority 0, right? And so what's the next thing they do? They tried to get the quarterback that went to Cleveland, right? And so that showed you like how they felt about that position. Now that didn't work out. They went and got, they signed Jameis, and I'm glad they signed Jameis. I like Jameis. And I think if they give him some weapons around him, I think you got a playoff team, no question, right? But the Saints in the NFL said, all right, we don't really think Jameis is a franchise starting quarterback, right? And so that was just what the contract says, right? If he wasn't, he would have got a bigger contract, in the injury. I'm with the injury, and so my thought was like, man, like this looks like a move for a franchise quarterback, right? Because you trade. I don't know how many first round picks they gave up. Is it 3 or for I forget how many. It depends on how you look at it, I guess. But like they gave up a lot of compensation. They were
they basically gave up one. I mean, they gave up one
for the
first round pick.
future. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
a
You're
1
right.
or 2, yeah, and the other stuff. But I
In the
mean, that
other,
was
yeah,
basically
and then they
yeah,
switched on the other.
yeah,
Yeah, and okay, yeah, yeah, yeah. But that's a move for. I mean, those are typically quarterback moves.
yeah,
Right? That's a quarterback move. 90% of the time in NFL history, only time that wasn't a quarterback move was Marcus Davenport. Now it just happened to be the same team. So that definitely makes the case that it's not. But that was the logic. And I think that's valid. I understand how I got to that point and I can get back to there. But I could see it being like, hey, you know what? Well, the point that I was making at the beginning of the thing, well, we're not going to use free agency, we're going to use the draft. Right. And then so I'm just like, okay, well, that's a different way to think about it. So I think ideally, you get a quarterback and a wide receiver. Like if you're the Saints and you're sitting there at, the first pick of the first round, I forget how many picks they got now, 16, and you see a quarterback just sitting in your lap, specifically the kid from Pitt, you gotta take him. I think
yeah,
there's no way they pass on Pickett. I think they're like there's almost a 0% chance that if Pickett is sitting on the board that you pass on him. If Jameis is so good that kid never plays, then you'll probably get a high second for him, right? Down in a couple of years or something like that. And so it's just like, it just seemed like a quarterback move, right? But I can understand again how they got to the point. I mean, how someone can say, well, or even if they do it, like, hey man, let's stay here and let's try to strengthen the team that we have, right? So both trains of thought make sense, right? I could see them trading up to get a quarterback, and if it do, that means they love somebody. If it's not a quarterback, then we'll talk about that when it happens.
yeah, yeah. But sitting there if one falls to him like that, yeah, I mean, that would make you got to if you like the guy
You
and he
gotta
follows
take
you,
them.
yeah, you
You
got
gotta
to,
take them.
yeah,
You gotta take
yeah,
them. And I mean, and I was thinking about that today actually. So I went and looked at some mock drafts. Not mock drafts, like I looked at I went and looked at the draft order, right? I'm pulling it up right now. And I was thinking like, man, after a certain point, one of those guys may fall to him,
yeah,
right? Like when you look at like after a certain, I guess, cloud of teams, then you're like, man, it could be like say Jacksonville Jaguars, they're not going to take a quarterback. Detroit at number 2, I just don't think that they're going, at that pick, right? I don't think they're going that high. Houston, all signs say that they like Davis Mills, and I think they really believe in him. I don't think he's going there. Then you got the Jets, the Giants, the Panthers, and the Falcons, and the Seahawks are the teams that I'm looking at. Well, it's 4, and then the Steelers, right? Because I think they may move up. But I think when you look at the rest of the teams in the first rounds and the picks that teams have, I think I don't think it's unlikely that, and when the Saints are picking that, one of those quarterbacks that, maybe people consider the first 2 quarterbacks are on the board.
yep.
Yep. Yep. All right. All right. And so another thing. What do you think about the thought that, the Saints are saying, hey man, you know what? Sean Payton is probably got his own coaching in the year. They probably
Yeah,
know for
the one thing
sure.
I'd say though is I don't think that should be, like, attached to this deal. Like, getting those
Mhm.
picks back has nothing to do with the value of this trade. Like,
Yeah.
if you're looking at this trade and be like, "Wow, they didn't get enough back," but, "Oh, they're adding the Sean
Right.
Payton
Right.
stuff to it, so that makes the value." No,
It's
because
not a
those are
good
2
trade.
separate
Yeah.
events. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
so that isn't that's I think looking at the Sean picks, maybe you could say, "Well, this is why they've got a little more aggressive with their compensation." And
Yeah.
but, like, I don't think that you look at those 2 things and mush them together. Look, Sean might like broadcasting games and never come back. I mean, it's a
Yeah, man.
possibility.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he might
so
pull a Gruden and be
you
gone for a decade.
right. You might enjoy just being able to have a lifestyle that's a little bit less demanding, and
Right.
that's a lot to so I think you gotta make this trade and feel good about this trade, and if you do get something back later, you get something back later.
That'll
But
be, like, really good, though. If you trade for these picks, and
yeah,
then a year later you get some Sean picks, like, that's like, and especially if you get a quarterback this draft, oh my gosh.
so
Like, you hit the lottery and you get a bunch of picks in the future and your cap is fixed, like, Anyway, little ray of hope there. But anyway,
Yeah,
go ahead.
but like I think it's fair to look at it and be like, oh, well, they aren't gonna have any means to have players on their own. So, well, if Sean comes back, they'll have these things. So I think it's fair to look at it
Yeah,
like that, but
yeah,
just kind of
it's nice.
being like this thing plus the Sean Payton picks to be named
Yeah,
later. Like, no,
yeah,
that's not how this deal is gonna work.
yeah. And for all we know, they may get like a second for Sean.
Yeah,
Like
right,
we have, I don't know how this
right,
works, right? Like
right.
Sean is not going to want to go to a team that has no picks. I
Yeah,
mean, if you did, they get,
I think you probably at least get a like if Belichick, Parcells, those guys were first round picks. I think you at least get a first.
yeah, yeah, I
But
do too.
yeah.
I think multiple probably. At
Yeah,
this point,
probably
I mean,
multiple. Like
teams are
Belichick was
aggressive.
worth first, and he wasn't,
Yeah. And in
anything at that
NFL
point.
right now is wild. So like like in the NFL, like anything can happen, right? And
Yeah,
so
yeah,
but
for
yeah,
real.
yeah, it's just like you nonstop. So but yeah, man, this I think they shook it up with this one. They shook it up with this one. I think it says a lot about like what they think about, like where they think they are, but I think it says nothing about like what they're gonna do, right? Which is it lets me know that like I think they're still trying to be competitive, right? Because you don't make this type of move if you're not trying to compete. I don't think, but I do think that what the heck they're gonna do with these picks is just
It's fascinating.
it's crazy, man. What I know you brought it up early, and I'm glad I just thought about it. Like, why do you think that they made? And I think I know the answer to this, but I think it's a good last topic. Like, why do you think they made the pick to yesterday, I forget when it was, yesterday, instead of, like, maybe draft day? Is it because logistics, like, man, it's just a lot
I
to
don't know,
handle
man.
before the
I don't know.
draft?
I don't know. Like it just might be it came together.
Mm,
Hey, what would you want for this? We're looking for oh da da da. Oh well.
yeah,
Oh you like you want to do it? Cool. Let's do it. Like it might have just been something like that.
yeah,
It is interesting to say the least, though, that it's a good 3 weeks before the draft, 3.5 weeks. I mean, that's usually not the timing of these type
yeah,
of things. But,
yep, yep. I would have made it's one of the main things that made me kinda think about my take that they were going it for doing it for a quarterback, because you don't make this move. And I mean, I think who was it? The Eagles did it when they went to 2, and it was Goff and Wentz, and it was like, "Man, listen, we cool with them both. Like, we know we're gonna get one. Even if they trade out of one, we don't care. We know we're gonna get one of these guys, and we have a super high grade on them." Right. And I get that. And I understand why you make that type of move pre-draft. But when you pre-draft, you're making a move just to get in a couple of picks in the middle. Not just those are significant picks, but to get picks in the middle around it kind of made me think like they're not going up for one player, because that player could just Detroit could just say forget it and draft Kenny Pickett, and you just made a crazy trade for what I mean. And so I just think it kind of like took me away from thinking that it was for one specific player, and it made me think like, no, I think this is not if the quarterback gets drafted where they are, if they stay and get it, then, or if the guy gets from like 5 picks from there and they say, all right, well, Pickett's too good to be pick 12. We're going to use the draft compensation to go get him. But
yeah, I
it
think they
definitely,
want their options. I think part of doing it now is to have their options so they can
yeah,
explore everything and,
yeah,
maybe you make a deal to go up ahead of time and you at least you can have those conversations.
yeah,
I think I think teams like to have those conversations well ahead of the draft and just kinda get a feel,
right.
hey, like, if this happens, what would it take, if your
Yeah,
guys aren't there or whatever. So I think it just allows them to kinda have all their information. It's advantageous, I think, for the Saints, because even if they were looking to trade up, they're in a situation where if they can't trade up, they can still make use of
yeah,
all
yeah,
these
yeah.
picks. So
They
I
have
it's
options.
yeah, it's good. It's
Options.
just good to have your information now.
Yeah,
And if Philly knows they don't want to be like it, it's a little unusual, but I think it's just kind of makes sense. I think we're seeing a lot of things in the NFL kind of change as far as
yeah,
trade.
man.
There's less
Yeah,
apprehension towards trading than that, and I think like there's just some more common sense things happening with the way people operate.
yeah, 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 yeah. That's a good point. That's a good point. All right, guys. Crazy, 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 crazy couple of days if you are following the New Orleans Saints. It's been a eventful, then a lull, then another eventful offseason thus far with the Saints. So I get the feeling that we're still pre-gaming it. Like I feel like there's just something, I don't know, man. I don't know, but this is a franchise it could be a franchise changing move. I think it could kind of go both ways, right? It could be like, oh man, they dropped the ball on this, and you got to take a few years to bounce back. Or this could be a situation where, they just set themselves up for the future, whether they get the quarterback of the future, or if they, draft a lot of talented players, and and they go with Jameis, and they find success that way. So we'll keep following it here on NewOrleans.Football, like you guys know we always do. As I told you guys earlier, you save 20% on a subscription. Use the code draft season on checkout on any one of the plans, and support us, man. If you're listening to this podcast, like I said, please go NewOrleans.Football /subscribe. Pick one of the tiers and just be caught up on everything. Nick Twitter feeds, always breaking news. I mean, we don't want to take score here or nothing, but we're winning. And so yeah, just I don't know what you guys are waiting for, really. I don't know what else could be done. Like, did you guys, by the way, I just want to plug it again, because we spoke about it. I think it came out right before the members only pod, but Nick did a mock draft, which sucks because it's like a week later they went in. Like,
nah,
bro,
man, we were happy we got that out, because like if we had waited, like it would have been cooked by
oh no,
yeah. So we were happy
that's
we
a
were
good
happy
point.
it released, and we had a good 4-day run for people to see it. It got a decent amount of view. Yeah, no, we're happy with the outcome, man.
Oh my gosh! I guess if that would have happened, then you'd have just kind of had to holler at the Eagles guy and be like, "I just need you to keep
Yeah.
that." Yeah, let me get that pick. We can switch this up a little bit, but yeah. So
We would have had to probably redo the whole draft actually
I
after that
know.
point. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's crazy. That's crazy. So it's dope. It's dope, man. I mean, 32, beat writers from across the country. Well, some teams probably have a couple of firsts, but you get the message. So it's a crazy piece of work. I know we're very proud of it, Nick and his team, and everyone who had a hand in putting that together. So that's how we trying to change the game around here. So support it, and it's on YouTube, and just go check it out. You guys know what with the YouTube page is NOF.TV. So thank you guys for joining the pod with us. Chat. We always love the live chat. Thank you guys for listening. We'll see you next week. We out.